How's it going, everybody? My name is Nosy Patty, and today we are checking out a video by Nerdstalgic. This video is called Why Movies Used to Look a Lot Better. Now, I'm a pretty big film head. I like movies, I like TV shows, I watch quite a lot of them, but despite all that, I really don't know a lot of facts or cool techniques or interesting things about filming and stuff like that, despite me wanting to eventually make films and stuff like that in my life. So, I figured this is a great opportunity to learn about this. So without further ado, man, as always, the link to the original video is down in the description below. But let's go. Let's get into this.
The basic rule of thumb is the bigger the miniature, the more realistic it's going to be because you can put more detail into it. The bigger you build it, the more realistically the light behaves within the set.
This is the establishing shot of Minas Tirith from Peter Jackson's seminal film, Return of the King. And here's Isengard, Rivendell, and the Gates of Argon.
They use these with miniature sculptures and then CGI'd it and then made the guys really small, scale them down. That looks. I love the Lord of the Ring movies. This is sick.
The film was released 24 years ago, and yet it still looks as good as any major blockbuster put out this summer. Why is that?
That's what I'm saying. This CGI doesn't the mountains kind of look fake. Yes, you could tell it's kind of like green screen, I guess. But for the most part, this looks pretty good, and current day movies look as about the same quality. So it's not that they look better necessarily, I guess, but it's almost like because it's all computerized, one, it's lost its humanized touch to it, right? And we could feel that despite us not even knowing it. Maybe we could feel that through the movies, but you would expect it to be way better and more realistic looking, because times have changed, it's gone further, evolution, technology, all that shit. But at the same time, how much more real can it look? There's only so much more real it can look. If once it looks real, it's real. You can't make it look more real than what's already looks real,
What has made Lord of the Rings age like a fine wine? Well, the answer's simple: miniatures.
The beauty and the awesome size and nature of the miniatures has given the film a wonderful reality and firmly makes you feel as though you've journeyed to Middle-earth.
Before we get too deep into this, let's define what we're talking about, so everyone's on the same page. A miniature is exactly what it sounds like. It's a miniaturized version of something in real life. Usually,
as a kid, I always wanted to have, the cool thing about miniatures too is they're just like toys that you would have as a kid, right? And you could reenact movie scenes or TV scenes. That's a lot of what I would do as a kid with my toys, especially like this helicopter is a perfect example, you know what I mean? I would get cardboard boxes, right? And I would get a Sharpie and I'd cut out little windows with scissors and draw on shit onto the house, cardboard boxes. Try to make them look like houses, and I'd cut a slit into the door, a doorway into the thing, and fold. I had my army soldiers walk in and out because I was really into army movies as a kid and recreate army scenes and from video games and dinosaur movies, and a lot of it was possible because of toys basically acting as miniatures are in movies. And that's a really cool correlation. I don't know.
Usually created on 1/6, 1/12, or 1/18 scale, and then
because yeah, these are literally just like toys pretty much.
Comped into an existing live-action shot. Some of the miniatures for Lord of the Rings specifically were so large, they were created at the 1/72nd scale and nicknamed bigatures.
We built these things huge because we wanted them to stand up to a lot of scrutiny on screen.
While they might be the most impressive recent example of using trick photography and miniaturized sets to generate an awe-inspiring sense of scale, they're not the first film project to do so. The first significant use of miniatures in a movie is inarguably George Méliès's Trip to the Moon. The surreal early sci-fi effort not only changed the way people thought of film as a medium, but changed the way we went about making them. The techniques that Méliès would pioneer would be taken and improved on for the next 100 years. He's nothing short of the godfather of almost all filmmaking techniques. And while utilization of miniatures would become commonplace over the next century of movie making, it wouldn't be until the 1980s that the practice would reach its apex. The opening shot of Blade Runner? Yeah, that impressive weird pyramid thing is a miniature. The derelict and Alien? Yeah, that's a miniature too. All the ships flying through space in every Star Wars film. Those too are all miniatures. Almost like there's a casual link between being an all-time classic and having miniatures in your film.
In traditional model building and photography, you get happy accidents. And those are things you can't capture. You can't invent that. But now when you combine the two, you can get the best of both worlds.
However, having miniatures in your movie was an expensive practice. It's not something every production could afford, which is why you don't see them all the time. The ships in Star Wars are actually a perfect example of this. Yes, the effects are timeless and undoubtedly a massive reason why the film is still beloved.
But look how detailed this shot is. Like, all the dimensions, the volume within the picture, like, this was an expensive model to make. It took a lot of time and took a lot of delicacy. This is not an easy craft.
To this day, but they also were actually a part of a massive leap forward in filmmaking technology. To film multiple ships flying through space, John Dykstra created a computer-controlled camera rig, now referred to as the Dykstraflex. Basically, each ship would be photographed separately on a blue screen, and then using a computer-controlled system of 7 axes, the camera would repeat the same movements over and over again, filming other ships, starfields, and explosions so that these various layers could be optically printed and combined together for a visually impressive finished sequence. This process was complicated, time-consuming, and prone to error.
We were building an entire system from the beginning to the end. It all had to come together to make the first piece of film.
While the
I mean, yeah, this is like with any, like, whenever there's new types of technology, the first few attempts and prototypes are always going to be harder and, you know, aren't going to be the most practical ways to do it or cost-effective ways to do it. But over time, you'll figure that out.
technology around comping models and miniatures into shots has gotten much more refined as the decades have passed. This is essentially the exact reason why miniatures aren't utilized more today. They take up space, time, and energy to create. Why spend millions of dollars building a tiny model house or castle to photograph for a few seconds when you can build it digitally and it might cost you 1/10 of the money? Well, therein lies the problem. We all know what a digital background, location, or even a fantastical ship hurtling through deep space looks like. It's a small, almost imperceptible feeling. We can perceive it and just know that the thing we're looking at is not there. Digital filmmaking tools are vitally important, obviously, but in this specific context, they'd be better served to augment a physical object, as opposed to completely replacing it. We need more miniatures in film today. Not only are they fun and whimsical, but they act as a grounding effect. They anchor scenes in a subconscious way, they're objectively less real, and yet, because they're a physical object in space, they are more emotionally real.
Got to have real film footage. You can use digital technology to blend things, but beyond that, as much as possible, you want to really photograph an object.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, because when I see a movie, right, like Stranger Things, for example, I was looking at some of the behind the scenes footage, especially during the final boss when Steve and Dustin are underneath the creature and they're spiking, using the spike and they're, doing that. The fact that for the most part it's all kind of green screen, kind of like it's all blue greens or blue screen behind them and shit. There's not, I don't know, it kind of like when there's too much of it, right, and you find out about it, it can kind of ruin the immersion of a movie, I guess. Especially when you try to rewatch it. I think a good example might be Planet of the Apes, but even then, the actors, portraying the monkeys did such a good job in the costumes that it's funny, so it almost like adds to it in a way, versus something like Stranger Things where it's kind of just looks like very corny now, very like a shitty high school theater play now.
And really stick it into the shots.
There's just something about seeing a real thing that an army of people worked on that just instantly connects you to the film you're watching. And the worst part is most filmmakers know this, but the money is just too much of an obstacle to overcome. There's even been a push to try and incorporate miniatures back into some big budget productions. For example, The Mandalorian included a shot that had stop-motion AT-ATs and even a practical model of the Razor Crest. But at the end of the day, these small offerings feel more like organically integrated marketing efforts, more so than an actual creative ethos.
I learned from Guillermo del Toro, if you build a miniature, you get to have it in your house. Or a prop.
They feel like a small offering to a minor corner of the fandom that will get excited about them. It's the same creative impulse that leads to Blade having an off-camera line at the end of Eternals. A nice head nod, but ultimately a creatively fruitless endeavor. Even so, though, it's interesting to see these behemoth filmmaking entities grapple with this process. It's fascinating to see Star Wars, a franchise known for its technical and visual breakthroughs, attempting to signal to viewers, look, we know it feels better to see miniatures, but this is the best we can do. Furthermore, it's odd that other big franchises don't do something similar. Like, it would be so easy for Rings of Power or Legendary's Monsterverse or a subset of the Marvel movies to do something legitimately ambitious, but they just never will. It's not the business they're in.
I don't know. Don't get me wrong, cause it's still like watching these scenes. They're still pretty sick, right? And it's not like it ruins it completely. I'd still be able to watch almost all of the movies and shows knowing this shit and not care. Cause at the end of the day, if it's a good a piece of film, it's a good piece of film, and I'm gonna appreciate it no matter what. But yeah, it's got that human quirk to it of having actual miniature models and like models of these things, props. It's cool.
Unfortunately, which really is too bad because the movies look better and have a longer shelf life when you use miniatures. Literally, they are better end products for the massive corporation that's attempting to extract as much value as possible, but they take a bit more time and effort, so it's just a non-starter. This isn't even to say they couldn't use digitally augmented miniatures. That's literally what Lord of the Rings did. They utilized a hybrid of different filmmaking techniques to reach their end goal.
The Ring of Isengard and the tower itself are the miniature. The sky is a matte painting. So that's one of our classic hybrid shots, but it's all built up out of pieces. You're putting the right things together to make it work.
Miniatures are such an important part of film history. They've been there since the beginning. Whether it be foggy, far-off locales like Dracula's castle or the teeming futuristic cities of Metropolis, most of the iconic visuals produced in the history of the medium feature miniatures. Indelible images.
And I think what's cool about them is they all provide a set of uniqueness to the film. Even if they're all miniatures, they're all different, and they all, like I said, have those quirks. And like if different people are making them, they're going to show their personality through their design in some type of way. And the different ways they use it to make hybrid shots, but when stop motion and stuff like that, it allows for so much more creative expression and experimentation, which I think is like a really big part of artwork and in any aspect, whether it's music, filmmaking, physical like paintings and sculpting like that. Expression and experimentation is a big part of it, you know what I mean? Testing the boundaries and stuff like that.
Constructed by human hand that transports us to far-off times and locations. Miniatures give filmmaking an emotional undergirding that allows audiences to believe in the fantastic. They're an essential component of the magic of the film, and yet they have been eradicated by the onward march of technology. They've been replaced by digital solutions, faster, cheaper, and technically indistinguishable.
Look at that. That looks like just stupid. He's sitting on a robotic shell with a green screen capturing him entirely in a studio. Man, being an actor or actress sometimes is like such a like corny job in my opinion. Like, this is what you did today at work. That's cool, I guess. And like the finished product, yes, sick. Some of the scenes even on their own behind the scenes are pretty fucking cool. But shit like this is just goofy.
Replaced by digital solutions, faster, cheaper, and technically indistinguishable by the human eye, and yet they are different. It's the imperfections and strangeness of these visual solutions that elevates them into something iconic.
The work we were doing could be successful because the product was significantly more interesting and more evocative than it would have been if we'd settled for the cheap and cheerful approach.
Think about 2001: A Space Odyssey. All the exteriors in space in that movie are, you guessed it, silly little ships made by hand. Same for the exterior of Hogwarts. Each one of these images is iconic. How many modern images sustain in the same way? How many of them truly escape the confines of the story they're in and bleed into wider culture? There's something romantic and whimsical about the idea that a team of people spent weeks tinkering on a 1/10 scale school for wizards. Even if you don't literally know that information, you feel it when you watch the movie. It's a meta layer on top of the story you're watching. It makes the filmmaking process feel like a grand statement. The fact that an object is being photographed is objectively better. Miniatures are better, and you only have to look at the greatest living filmmakers to see they agree with me. But let's be real, the appetite just isn't there. At the end of the day, we're not going to see miniatures used in a widespread way. But maybe, just maybe,
It just sucks because at the end of the day, the people who fund these movies, with the money, they're not the ones who make the movies. They just put the money into it. And so basically they say, and whatever they say, that goes, because they can just pull the funding out the movie and there goes your movie. It's not getting produced after all. And that's what sucks is like it's like not even that it's like the directors or the actors' faults or whatever the case. It's usually the investors and shit like that and the people who make those decisions that end up ruining. I mean, they could usually sometimes they benefit and they can benefit from these decisions, but a lot of time they destroy the original creators' like vision. And the vision is usually, if that's their vision, first of all, I think that should be portrayed even if it sucks, because that's their vision, that's their art. But a lot of times it's what's the genuine vision, and that's you can feel it, and that's what makes it so much better to watch or to read or listen to or look at whatever type of artwork it is.
maybe this video finds some young upstart filmmaker and they decide to buck the system. And hopefully we'll live in a world one day where it becomes more commonplace. And well, that's all we have for this episode.
Man, that was a good video, man. These guys, you know what? I don't care. I'm subscribing because if they do a lot of movie shit like this, I like their videos. I'm liking them, subscribing, and you guys should do that too. Make sure to go check out their videos. Like I said, the links are in the description below. And with all that being said, man, what do you think? Do you agree? I think movies back then, older movies are better. I mean, the fact that they can still contest and hold up with current day movies despite all the advancements in technology, that says enough. You know what I mean? But hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure to like, subscribe, put on those post notifications, do all that, do all that good shit. And as always, guys, stay safe, stay snazzy, and stay blessed.